Hey, it's Soul with another video. The World of Warcraft is a pretty big game, including nearly 100 zones. Someone asked me the other day, hey, Soul, what's your favorite zone in WoW? That's a tough question, man. With so many zones, there's no way I can really decide my favorite. So instead, I'm going to highlight 2 or so notable zones from each continent in WoW, and that's still a lot of zones. Obviously, this is another one of my more biased highlight videos based on personal experience, including the fact that I didn't play the Cataclysm versions of the Eastern Kingdoms and Kalimdor, at all. Whoops. So some of you might not know what the hell I'm talking about. Some of you might feel a little nostalgic. And some of you might have to correct me, it's been a while. So let's go. Stranglethorn Vale was dense with players of a really big level range, like in the mid-30s or so to the mid-40s. And it was a contested zone. I was on a PvP realm, so things can get pretty hot, pretty fast, thanks to the possibility of people being on mounts, and with a high mob density depending on what area you're in. I liked it though, because it had that real jungle feel with the density of foliage and mobs, with fewer wide open areas. The questing was cool too, including, of course, the Green Hills of Stranglethorn questline with Hemet Nezinwary. I felt anxious the whole way through, from north to south, having to watch my back for patrols or stealth cats or pesky players. Fall Glades. The nostalgia was strong here, but I had a lot of fun being a Forsaken, which was my first race back in 2004. The feeling of rising up from the grave, literally, and marching off to the unknown brings back that noob feeling that, as a veteran, you just can't recapture. The zone itself was dark, even out in the open, filled with the remnants of the dead. And I found it pretty funny that just to the east was a level 50 zone, like, there it is, a glimpse into dangers I won't be strong enough to handle for weeks. I like that I came back here again and again to complete some Warlock quest line, to venture to Scarlet Monastery, and then finally to cross that threshold and brave the frontier of the Plaguelands. Outland was a very strange experience, with only a handful of zones that had heavily contrasting themes and different shades of green and earth and purple. My favorite zones in Outland included Shadowmoon Valley and the Grand. The Grand was home to numerous questlines and grind spots that I still remember. I think of Ogre Beads and notable names like Lantresser the Blade, Great Mother Gaia, and of course, Garrosh Hellscream. You gotta wonder just when Blizzard started seeing stars in Garrosh and if they knew what fate was in store for him in the coming years. And it was a really good looking zone, especially after seeing the different hellscapes that come with being on a shattered planet. And who could forget the original, the OG Ring of Blood? Shadowmoon Valley had a lot of great moments, including the discovery of Terran Gorefiend, the first look at Gul'dan, and of course, the discovery of Maiev Shadowsong. The zone was dark, foreboding, and it was a glimpse of a possible future for Azeroth if the original Horde won. But for me as a small-time raider, Shadowmoon Valley holds a special place. By that I mean it was where I underwent a ton of grinding for my Netherdrake mounts. Day after day I'd hop on over there, turn into a red orc, and do the rounds over on Netherwing Ledge and other spots in Outland too, but I was really motivated to have my very first dragon mount. Northrend, like Outland, had a lot of contrasting themes, which is a little bit odd for a continent up on the frozen north. Places like Icecrown and Dragonblight were pretty awesome, but it was Storm Peaks that was a spectacle. It wasn't just a zone, it was a kingdom, and I think it's still the biggest Titan presence in WoW. The story drew me in because it was fresh, it was different. It wasn't the Lich King, which kind of permeated the expansion as it was. I was tired of it, and this was the answer. This was a big step into the story of WoW that takes place on a cosmic level, the biggest of the big pictures, with the tragedy of Thorim and Sif, and the growing threat of the old gods. Xuldrak is kind of an odd zone. Almost the whole place is a troll city, complete with its own Ring of Blood, and a mix of characters including the Argent Dawn and the Knights of the Ebon Blade. What pulled me in though was that the story of Xuldrak is actually part 2 of a story that started in Grizzly Hills just to the south. As a reminder, the situation in Xuldrak is the product of our actions as players, tricked by the Lich King. And now we gotta fix the problem. For that reason alone, I felt invested into the zone and had a lot of fun, even if we didn't end up doing anything super cool like a troll raid in Gundrak over there. The Cataclysm zones are kind of an odd bunch, once again having really different themes, from the home of the earth elementals, to the vast deserts, to a zone I still love to this day and you might love to hate, Vashj'ir. Vashj'ir is the most unique zone in all of WoW. It's freaking massive. Like it has subzones on its map, come on. It was memorable, from being attacked by a giant sea monster, to riding currents, to venturing to the abyssal depths. Zone storylines didn't get as epic or nauseating as this. It wasn't without its problems though, especially when it came to game mechanics like AoE attacks, but for me it didn't take enough away from the zone itself. Just the idea of deep underwater exploration and a story to walk us through it all was a lot of fun. Under it though is a massive world you otherwise don't get to see from the sky. Above, among the highest elevations in Azeroth, is Mount Hyjal, which I think is a very underappreciated zone. In fact, it's two zones, the one above with Nordrassil, and the one below, charred by the Twilight cultists, and some fire guy too. When I say underappreciated, I speak for all the Cataclysm zones in that flying took the experience of travel away from most players who could afford to buy the license. Just walking out of Nordrassil gave us incredible views of the renewed world tree that not everyone was able to appreciate back in the raid version of this place back in the Burning Crusade. In fact, I dare you, once level scaling comes in, do one of these zones without flying at all. I think you'll find that there's more to appreciate. Mists of Pandaria thankfully brought us back to a single continent with varying themes that didn't contrast themselves too heavily, except for the Dread Waste. That was, different. Every zone had its way of bringing us a unique personality, with the Valley of the Four Winds exemplifying it. Personally, I don't care for the panda theme, but it was easy to get past that, and by the time you hit this particular zone, you'll realize that your faction is doing more harm than help to the region. Valley of the Four Winds is like a reset, a reintroduction where you represent yourself more than your faction. The valley does a lot to tell the story of Pandaria, and after fully completing it and Krasarang Wild, you're rewarded with one of the most awesome quest lines ever, the Savior of Stoneplow. To the north is Kunlai Summit, another very, very busy zone full of activity. As the Horde and Alliance continue to bicker, we get a chance to go on a hiking expedition, climb a super windy peak, learn more about the last Emperor of Pandaria, and take a balloon ride down to help a village and see a glimpse of what's to come in the near future, the return of the Thunder King. Eventually, this will lead you to Thunder Isle, another very well-crafted zone that I at least wanted to mention. The zones in Warlords of Draenor might not be stocked with activity when compared to other zones in earlier expansions. The ones that stand out, though, are the ones that, in my opinion, were the most complete. Which kind of sets the bar low, but, well, you take what you can get. Frostfire Ridge and Shadowmoon Valley represented the better of what Warlords had to offer. They set the tone for us to not be invaders, but liberators, well, the good kind of liberators. The environments felt rich, and especially with Shadowmoon Valley, had a stark contrast to the main universe versions over in Outland. These particular zones were topped off with what was for the first time a very involved scenario and a cinematic cherry on top. Like it or not, Tanan Jungle wasn't all that bad. It was full of both activity and danger on every front, like a jacked up version of Stranglethorn Vale. It was just straight up busy, and it had to be, considering that there weren't any updates done to the other zones over Warlords of Draenor's lifetime. It felt pretty cool whenever one of those big rares was announced, and similar to the Timeless Isle, players from all around descended upon it like vultures, tearing the area to pieces. Separated from the daily activity was the final Garrison campaign that helped set the tone as we learned more about Kilrogg, of Gul'dan, and the Burning Frickin' Legion. For me, the Broken Isles represents the best work Blizzard has done at zone design. Never mind the gripes about traversing mountains and ledges, but just take a look out the window. You're on a floating city overlooking ruins, a secluded city, and the second coming of hell. Towering above is High Mountain, and what's easily Azeroth's highest elevation to date, except for maybe that. Nooks and multiple paths to locations are both numerous and, more importantly, natural looking. And the scale is incredible. I could be standing here in Stormheim and see all the way in the distance the Warden Tower in East High Mountain. It's hard to see this kind of effect elsewhere. Now, it's hard to choose standout zones, but one of them includes Stormheim. It's the zone of the Vrykul, of those usual Norse-inspired environments and buildings, and a giant frickin' statue. I wasn't drawn in by the Horde and Alliance conflict so much as I was with the flame-bearded side of things, the Legion and the Helya side of the story. It took us to high peaks, dead villages, to dragons, and literally hell. And to the south is Suramar, arguably one of the most complicated zones in WoW's history. Till now we haven't seen a zone dedicated to a living city with citizens, guards, and a raid instance attached. Both the city and its outskirts are lined with numerous labyrinths and indoor areas that create a setting for an involved story of desperation, insurrection, and unification. The Vrykul village might feel slightly out of place, but the story of the Nightborn is a game changer for the elven culture. and I'm excited to see that further explored as we get closer to WoW's next expansion. So that's all for today, and I feel a little bad because I can go on and on about almost every zone in WoW, but I'd never be done with it. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on at least a few of your favorite zones in WoW, and why. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe for more of this and all things Warcraft. I'll see you in the next video, and until then, stay safe, stay happy, and stay breezy.